We have some really great examples and resources for you to use in the instructional guides. Here's an example of one of the building understandings that comes from this unit. Take a moment by yourself, or if you're planning with a grade level team, to anticipate some student solutions and strategies to this particular problem and context. Hopefully you had some time with your team or by yourself to anticipate some student misconceptions or solutions and strategies that they may have used to solve this problem. One thing that I'd like to point out is that you may use those students' representations in your class to make those natural connections to build student understanding rather than use the example on the PowerPoint. Here you can see that we've provided a model as well as the equation that would connect to what would represent our story.
And notice this could be subtraction or it could be a missing addend.
Here's another example of a fraction problem in context. Again, thinking about connecting the models to the equation. And as Joe said, different strategies may be used based upon the problem itself. There are many strategies that students can use within learning about addition and subtraction of fractions with like denominators. Here you can see we just encourage that we are using manipulatives so that students can build that concrete understanding and then make the jump to representing their concrete models in a drawing representation. Ultimately, we want to get them to the abstract, but we want them to get there with understanding.
Especially when this comes to regrouping of a whole. With our fractions, of course, it's going to be different amounts based on the denominator of when they create a new whole. So here we see some fraction strips and connecting those to counting on a number line. So you probably noticed that there could be a progression that you follow through in exposing students to the addition and subtraction with fractions. It's recommended to begin finding sums and finding differences within one whole before you have to start regrouping and creating new wholes. And then moving through that to find sums where you're going to have a fraction greater than 1 and also mixed numbers. This would be a good time to see if your students are able to determine when the denominator is going to tell them when we're making a whole, when we're going to have more than one whole, how we can convert between a mixed number and a fraction greater than 1. And then finally, probably the most difficult would be subtracting, where you're having to regroup one of those wholes. So you see in this example, 1 and 1/5, taking away 3 of those fifths, we don't have enough fifths, so we have to get them from that whole somehow. So it could be regrouping, it could be breaking apart, or it could be counting up. Those are actually pretty close, so maybe just counting up 2/5 would let you know that you're getting to find the difference of those two. Again, just like our addition models, we encourage you to look in the Unpack PowerPoint, look for some of these subtraction models that you can use. It's going to be really important, like we saw with our student misconception earlier, that students have plenty of experience modeling, especially regrouping those wholes. They're starting with those concrete models. We want to encourage them to take those concrete models and to convert those into pictures, into number lines. We're constantly working through that concrete to pictorial to abstract and having those all up at once so we can see how those models connect. And especially when we're talking about that regrouping. So think back that decomposition that they did in GCG1, how important it is. We can see in that second bullet different ways that students can break up their fractions. It doesn't just have to be decomposition of one whole to the other. They can break up all of the fractions, break up all of the whole numbers. We want them to have those flexible strategies as long as it's working for them.
Estimation. We want our students to be able to be exposed and use estimation when working with fractions. This definitely helps to build their number sense of fractions. and decide how big the fraction is based on its unit denominator. So when we're looking at a particular problem, for example, 1/8 plus 4/5, I know that 1/8 is closer to 0, whereas 4/5 is closer to a whole. So my sum is going to be somewhere around 1 whole.
And I know these examples are denominators that are not the same, but we can start any of this estimation with our denominators that are the same in fourth. This is going to really help the students as they move into fifth grade and add and subtract with unlike denominators.
Thinking flexibly about those fractions. So here's just a summary slide about what Joe and I pretty much talked about today. We encourage you to go ahead and take a moment to reflect on the bulleted items on the slide.
And again, revisiting this concrete representational abstract, the CRA. Again, we're not trying to move towards abstract being the goal, the finish line. We want students seeing all of these together so they can help make these connections across these. You'll see those bridges there across these concrete representational abstract islands.
What a great summary of what we just talked about today in the concrete representational abstract model, Joe.
Yeah, you'll see the CRA in a lot of these videos. All right, so finally, you can take scan the QR code or visit this to sign in for your attendance for this math dive in 5. Well, about 5. We went a little bit over 5 minutes.
Have a great day.